And we're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Heathen Talk. That's episode 43, but I've still got my towel because that's important, and you should too. This week's episode of Heathen Talk is brought to you by Sam Flegel at FableScience.com, featuring Norse mythology-themed art that explores the various legends and traditions of ancient Germanic peoples. Fable Science offers prints and original art that speaks to everyone who loves art or Germanic mythology. This week, Sam has released a new painting. Well, I'm sorry, actually, I think that was last week. Sam released a new painting called The King's New Crown, a compelling piece interpreting the Horned God. Prints are only available for a limited time, so act fast to get your copy. And if you missed out on the Kickstarter, Sam is now taking pre-orders on his illustrated Hobmall project on FableScience.com, featuring 40 original art ink drawings inspired by the Hobmall. Sam's been a big supporter of Heathen Talk, and we're always happy to return the favor. Go to his website and you won't be able to resist his incredibly compelling works of art. That's FatefulScience.com. And if you couldn't tell, I was reading that, but just because I was reading that to make sure I got all the info out there doesn't mean that I don't actually believe what I was reading. Sam's work is great. You should all own some. I highly recommend you go to FatefulScience.com and take a look at what he's got.
Yeah, we can't praise his artwork enough. Or the fact that, he helps out the show as much as he does.
He really does.
Speaking of the show, if you want to talk to us, you can always reach us at our Facebook page, facebook.com/heathentalk. We're on Twitter at @heathen_talk. We even have an Instagram that Mark loves to get followers at.
Loves it.
And you can also find us at our website, heathentalk.com. We do have an email, which you can throw any of our first names at heathentalk.com and get to us, but Lauren is pretty much the only one who pays attention because she's a beast.
Yeah, she is. Lauren is out this week. I'm sitting in for her. She's got finals this week and next. So thank her for all of her work. And this week, however, we have a special announcement. One, we got we crested 1,000 likes on Facebook, so woohoo go us! Thank you guys for the support. We really appreciate it.
We appreciate all the socks liking us.
Yes.
Thanks for all your efforts to create additional accounts to like us.
It's a pile of laundry in here. That said, with 1,000 likes, we've announced that the Heathen Talk podcast is now the Heathen Talk Network. We've got a second show on the dock that's going to be what we're calling the Java Mall, or 5-Minute Hava Mall. It's a short weekly series by Ben Wagner, who strangely enough is our toastee this week. Ben is a translator of multiple sagas. He currently runs the publishing arm of the Troth. He's a really friendly, smart guy. He's Lauren's kindred brother. A really cool dude. I'm really looking forward to his podcast. If you haven't, if you are a Patreon supporter, one, thank you so much. You can find us at patreon.com/heathentalk. You also get the Java Mall a week early. So I believe it's going to be every Monday morning. So go check that out if you feel like kicking us a few bucks a month. We'd appreciate it, and you get access to the early access to the podcast.
Also, if you are a current patron, you should check your inbox because you've already received instructions on how to get your first episode.
So I kind of hijacked Ben's moment with shilling for money, so that's on me. But I do want to say thanks, Ben. We're really glad to have you on the network, and here's to you, somebody who's doing.
To Ben.
Well, since I have the most pedestrian beer, I'm going to start first. I've got a cream ale from Laughing Dog Brewery. It is highly inoffensive. It's just good. Thorin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking another one from Avery Brewing in Boulder, Colorado. They just call it 22. It's a Britannomyces farmhouse ale. For those of you that aren't super beer nerds, Brettanomyces is one of the few funguses that we actually want to put in our beer sometimes. It helps us make sours. This stuff's actually really delicious, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wants a really super gentle sour and likes those funky farmhouse ales.
Josh, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a beer from a local brewery called Falling Sky. It claims to be a CDA, which is a Cascadian dark ale. It, however, drinks a lot more like a stout. I'm just going to take a moment here and offer some advice on the off chance that one of them happens to be listening. CDAs, while they should look like this, need a crispness that comes from the hops. There's not enough hops in here, and I don't like hops. So trust me.
And you know, I'm going to use that as an excuse to pimp Cascadia Mood a little bit here, because for those of you that don't really know what a CDA is supposed to taste like, come to Cascadia Moot and you'll find out. Just last weekend, I brewed 5 gallons of my own personal recipe for a CDA, and I'm just going to go ahead and assume that, like all of my beers, it's going to turn out to be a fantastic example of its breed. Nobody has anything to come back on from that.
Well, I was
Just the fantastic belching in the background was awesome.
I was going to kick it over to our guests and see what they're drinking. Brian, what are you drinking tonight?
Turkey Hill iced tea.
I'm just going to point out, I think every time you've been on the show, you've been drinking iced tea.
Usually with something in it, but tonight I'm really tired. If I started hitting deep in the cup, I'd pass out. So, yeah. But it's from right over the border in Pennsylvania, and it's really good.
And Daniel, Daniel's also with us. You drinking anything tonight?
Got a glass full of Hendrick's gin, just enough lime and tonic to qualify as gin and tonic.
There you go.
Wow. I have to. This man is responsible for my love of gin and tonics, and for that I will always have a special hatred of him.
I absolutely hated gin. My grandparents made bathtub gin just for the Depression, and I just couldn't stand it. But my brother Mike turned me on to Hendrick's gin, which is just phenomenally good. I did a 180.
Yeah, and
I love
no,
it.
exactly.
I
Throw
like
in some fever-tree tonic. That no worries of malaria or sobriety.
You know, I like a really good gin, and I hate a really bad one, and I'm not sure yet which one Hendrick's is. I gotta admit
I think it's really good. I really do. It's clean. It's on my shelf, and I love the fact that it looks like medicine, so I can claim it's medicine.
Well, it is medicine. That is the law when it comes to botanical liquors. They are medicinals.
Damn Skippy.
At worst, they're digestives.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our guests, Brian and Daniel. We're here for episode 2 of our, or the sequel to the Theodish invasion. I'm calling it the Theodish occupation. Last time y'all were on, we had a really good conversation. There was a lot of good questions from the IRC. If you're listening to us live and you want to join in the conversation, you can hit us up on Espernet and # Heathen Talk. There's a link to it in all of our show announcements. So guys, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. We love having you on. I want to start tonight's conversation with a question that came to us from the subreddit, and that's coming from JRedC. And the question is, Theods are known for their use of defined internal structure. More often than not, I find myself really liking this idea of an ordered tribe. It helps everyone to know their place, what's expected of them, and who they can use as an immediate resource if they need help. So my question is, what does this structure look like for your Theod? as in what are the ranks or purposes, jobs of the and purposes and jobs of those ranks? Secondly, what are the sources for the ranking system?
I think
Daniel,
the source goes back to a lot of the old Germanic laws, where everybody had a different weregild according to their station. Thralls had a certain weregild. Carls or the free men had a weregild associated with them, and just up the ladder, which incidentally forms the basis of what the Arung structure looks like. Arung, A-R-R-U-N-G, is the recognition of your glory or fame within your inner yards. From a military background, I love the word rank, and it's my go-to word to explain it, but if I really was pressed, it's not the best. And I blame Normandy for this, there is a heavy comitatus-based leaning in a lot of Theodish belief because of Normandy, and that they were a martial tribe first. So even within their civil structure, it was martial military ranks. Very much an attitude of, I'm a Thane, you're a Carl, go away. And I always thought that was wrong. That doesn't foster for Œþelland, it doesn't really work. We're a civil-oriented tribe. We're a roof tree-oriented tribe. And it is just a recognition of where you are within the order of that tribe. More importantly, though, it's not rank hath its privileges, it's rank hath its obligations. So in reality, it's a lessening of freedom the more worth you acquire, because the more is expected of you. Brian, anything else on that rabbit hole, man? I mean, we could go on that just for the rest of the hour and a half alone.
It's the world's worst pyramid scheme. The guy at the top doesn't get shit.
Yeah.
And the guys at the bottom get all the advantages and all the breaks. But all jokes aside, no, I mean, it's very much what Daniel was saying. We use the constructed term aron, and that's basically ar, which is what we would conceive of as honor, and run, like where you are in a ladder, the run of a ladder. So the aron, and so it's just just different stages. As Daniel said, it does come from the social structures of the Anglo-Saxons, specifically from Theodish belief, and much of it has to do with when a person in an ancient time was a Thane, there were restrictions and requirements that he had to have. He had to have a certain amount of land. He had to have a certain amount of people in his service. He had to, in some periods of time, he had to have a sword with a gold embossed hilt. There's just various recognition points of what you could be, just because you were. Sorry, I'm a little tired tonight. So that's where the structures come from, and for example, our Theod, we keep things very simple. Daniel was talking about the military ranks of Normandy and the civi ranks in Normandy, and you had like 3 or 4 stages of a churl. You had 3 or 4 stages of thaneship. You even had 3 stages of lordship.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just so heavy and so convoluted, and as Daniel said, it really was not conducive to building unity. If anything, it created a lot of drama, and it created a lot of intrigue. Normandy was a pit of vipers in a lot of ways, and it was not the people that are leading Theods now, but the people who have basically fallen away from it. That just they loved the intrigue, they loved the drama, they loved the shit talking, they loved the backstabbing, and it was all to try to gain prestige in the eyes of their lord, and he doled out his prestige as favor, and just not very conducive. So we just keep it really simple, and in White Marsh, it's not even really a big deal. Everybody outside of the Theodish belief, they're like, oh, thanes and ladies and lords, and as long as you don't call me late for dinner, I don't give a shit what you call me. But
I think at least for us, it really is highlighted predominantly during Symbol when we drink an order of a rum.
Yeah.
And then there's within Œþelland, we just have the three, and only usually within the guilds or like the drugged and the webbed, you see it broken out a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, oh gosh, how far deep down do we go? Even within the civil is what reigns supreme. The civil is you're a rung and you're standing within the tribe, and any webbed or drugged or rungs you may carry or responsibilities you may hold, they just serve to uplift your standing on the civil side as we see it.
Right. You know, we don't outside of Symbol where it does actually play a role. It's no big deal for us in White Marsh. I mean,
we're agreed. It doesn't have anywhere near the pageantry that Normandy brought to it. I don't miss that at all.
No, me neither. We just we don't. When we do engage in the courtly speech, or as they call it, it's done in fun. It's never done as a way to demean a person of lower rank or to aggrandize a person of a higher rank.
So now, sorry if I can break in here just for a second, mostly for the benefit of our audience. When you guys are referring to Normandy, you're referring to an early Theodish tribe, I guess.
Right.
Not the long gone historical.
No.
No, Normandy Theod underneath Dan O'Halloran, who's incarcerated and serving time in the pokey.
Woohoo! The man that both Daniel and I fostered under.
Yes.
So just a couple of things. Like you mentioned some terms that I don't think our audience will be very familiar with, or at least not in the manner in which you're using them. The first thing I want to work backwards. Can you talk a little bit about the courtly speech and because Theodsmen get a kind of reputation for flowery speech sometimes.
Usually when we're drunk. Courtly speech is just it's the tradition of interacting with people in a very flowery and extremely polite manner, recognition of station, and it's hard to describe but easy to do after a while. It's very contrived, and it's meant to be. Quite frankly, the courtlier my speech gets, the more aggressive I become. It's my form of passive aggressiveness. I'll be very nice, and the nicer I get, the angrier I'm becoming. But it's just part of the tradition. I mean, this is as much religion as there's a fun factor in the things that we do. It's not all drudgery and misery. My Lord Daniel, from this end of Windland to yours, greetings and Godspeed to you. Those sorts of things. It's just part of the tradition.
I too was in the SCA.
Yeah, well, there we go. We're LARPers, right?
So coming back to that, the other things we've mentioned, Daniel mentioned was the guilds. Daniel, without going into information or without talking too much inside baseball, can you talk a little bit about the guilds?
I'll couch it in. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I was going to say we could dissect Normandy really if you wanted to, but I really don't want to do that because. That is where we cut our teeth, but it was a martial-focused tribe, and I don't think that was conducive to its success in the end. So I'll talk about Œþelland because I don't mind that at all. What are the guilds? Well, guild is just anything that buttresses the civil or the roof trees within the Theod as a whole. It just seeks to uplift. Within Œþelland, we have a drugged, which is the martial oriented side of the house. And we've got the webbed, which is the altar servants, the priestcraft, if you will. We have a phenomenal carpenter who is taking hold shortly, and I would love for him to bring up the craft guild, which is exactly what it sounds like, to take care of things like that. And how do I see that happening? Well, he has put together a few things for us already, some altar items that the webbed has taken and done their thing to without getting too much into minutia. And it just, all that seeks to build up the material culture, which just uplifts the civil, the Theod as a whole.
They're special interest groups within the Theod, and they allow, just as Daniel said, for people to explore various interests and skill sets for the benefit of the Theod itself. We only have one at the moment, and that's the Œþelland, which is our version of the Priestcraft Guild. But in the day, there were several guilds in the old Winland Reacha and its predecessors. You had the Hayaruna Guild, which was the spooky stuff guild, for lack of a better word, and you had a blacksmithing guild as well. So yeah, they're just basically special interest areas where people can enrich their practice and enrich the Theod.
It's an interesting thing for two reasons. One, it just shows that it's not all books. It's not all highfalutin thinking. There's many different paths to take and many different ways to worth yourself in a Theod, in any community, really. You find the place where your strengths are played to, and you play to those strengths as well as you can. And the guild the guild pattern is a way to recognize and structure that, and kind of give people a chance to have a little less ambiguity in their life. And that's, I think, an important thing. The other thing that I find interesting here is that we're talking a lot about different, like, almost like muscular systems. If the Theod is a body, these different guilds are the different kind of organ systems. All these different groups that are handling different pieces of the work that needs to be done in order to live a right good life. But we haven't really talked about the skeleton, or that structure, that inner structure that everything else hangs on. And the one thing that separates Theodish belief from many other ways of organizing yourself in whatever we want to call heathenry is the oath web. I think it would be a good idea to start talking about that, because the structure, that is the structure that everything else rests on. Daniel, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was grabbing a example to share in the chat room of something that the web had carved and contributed. How do they contribute to the material culture of the overall Theod? And I think that link in the chat room will work. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, that was off on a tangent. Yes, the Web of Oaths. Wow, yeah, that's hard. It is what binds us together. It is the person-to-person obligations of reciprocal responsibility. It is a gift cycle. It is where worth comes from. It is where frith is built. When I first found Asatru, way back when, I found a kindred, and the individual oathed to the kindred, and the kindred oathed back. And the best description I ever heard of that was it's akin to oathing to a toaster. the ramifications that happened was that the Gothi of that kindred ended up sleeping with a kindred member. He was married, by the way. He ended up sleeping with a kindred member after meeting her for clerical counseling. So pretty much flagrant violation of Texas law for clerical relationships and counseling guidelines. But then what do you do as a group? He broke no oath. The group oath to him. I mean, it's the bedrock of what is an oath. You can't oath to a group. It's meaningless. You can't bind anything like that. So Shelley and I left. No way our kids were going to be anywhere near that environment. And we kicked around a couple times. Just stayed solitaire, and then other close friends that were part of that fallout. And eventually we covered this plenty of other places. Long story short of it, we found Theodish belief, made that work, and the web of oaths allows a direct hold oath, person to person. There is always an understanding of where you are in your society. There is always an understanding of what your exact obligations are in hold to another person, and for the responsibilities and obligations of hearing the hold oath, there is always an obligation spelled out of what's expected of you. And I, for one, feel very, very seriously that it's sacrosanct. It is of the utmost importance. I've had Theod members live on my couch just while they were between places. I have spent countless thousands of dollars paying people's gas money when times were short, paying their bills when they weren't able to do it. I'm out of work. Can you cut me a loan on this? Sure. And that's even aside from my obligations as Laughword of getting all the venues, paying for the food, getting everything lined up, running around and making sure the event goes off. Of course, there's the obligation of my men there to make sure that happens. But that all stems out of that one-to-one oath learned at the, or said, spoken at the knee, man to man. Man, of course, not the sexist sense, but man in the sense of the Anglo-Saxon, person to person.
Yeah.
And where did that come about? There's really, it's particular to Theodish belief. I tend to think that 4,000 years ago, when Bronze Age societies were migrating from kin groups to forming petty chieftaincies to forming larger kingdoms, something that we see in Tacitus where they're talking about the God-sprung kingdoms. You have to have a means of binding people together. And in the Anglo-Saxon written record, we have the oath spoken at the knee, the words of obligation, earning one's meed. And I think that those are the binding agents in our sacral society that has been laid down and given to us on how to form that society. And that's what we use.
Anything to add, Brian?
Well, I think the most important part of what Daniel just said there was that this is a holy thing for us. It's not just a structural thing. It's not just a means of managing people. This is a holy connection that is made between people. It is the most intimate relationship you can have between two people that I'm aware of, because a lot of people outside of Theodish belief often look at it as you're swearing fealty. And that is true. A person in the lower position is swearing fealty. But what they always fail to remember is that immediately, and I mean within seconds of that person pledging fealty, there is a return oath made by the person in the higher rank or higher Aaron to the man who just swore. So here's a man who basically is placing his entire trust, literally placing his head on your knee. That's a position of subservience, but it's also a place that's putting you and your neck at risk. And you're basically pledging your loyalty on your head. If I break my loyalty, my head is on your lap to do with. And immediately thereafter, the person's head is lifted. They're looked into the eye, and this person who you just pledged your head and you pledged your loyalty and your trust in says, I've heard it, and I am lucky in it, and we will both grow as people because of it. And that person makes a return oath. You've given me your trust. I'm giving you my pledge that I will do my very best for you, that I will put your needs above my own. And Daniel is right. I mean, this is a serious commitment. You put your needs before you put their needs before your own, because that's the whole idea with us. You pay it forward, and you give the people in your hold the best that you possibly can. So but this is a holy thing. This is witnessed by gods. This is the first things, as you know, as with these gods as my witnesses, and as well as I'm deserving, and as long as you're willing to hear it. I mean, these things are important. It's a holy obligation for us. So it's not just a structure thing. This is a religious thing in the truest sense. So I don't know. You'll have to forgive me. I'm really tired today, and I'm doing my very best not to ramble.
No. I think it's helpful. So, like, the structure, or the what makes an oath, we've talked about in the past on the show, and I know that we've talked about as together, and that it requires, at least 3 parties. It requires the person to give the oath, a person to receive the oath, and it requires some sort of worthy witness. We have a question again from Jared C. Let's say people make oaths to each other, and Mr. X is a witness and the holder of that oath. What happens if Mr. X loses his position, or commits some terrible wrong? The oath is witnessed not only by this person who is required to testify for it, but like you said earlier, though, the oath is witnessed by the gods.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, so Mr. X is the person hearing the oath, or Mr. X is the witness to the oath?
The witness to the oath.
Okay, well, the witness to the oath is just a witness to the oath. If the witness to the oath does something stupid in the future, it doesn't matter. They still witness the oath. You have to have a witness so you can say, these were the parameters laid down by this person swearing the oath. These are the parameters of the person hearing the oath. You have to have a third party just to be able to, like you do in any kind of contract, you have to have a third party that said, yeah, that happened. If the person witnessing the oath were to fall out of favor, that doesn't have any effect on the oath, because the oath is a sacred bond between the hearer and the swearer.
Okay.
And no person can interfere with that oath. No tribe, no spouse, no child, no even I, as the alderman of my Theod, I cannot interfere in the hold oath between a person under me and a person under them. I can't do that. That would be harming both my man and the man under them. That would be wrong. I'm not allowed to do that. I can ask, I can request, but I can't demand those sorts of things, because I'd be interfering in a sacred bond to which I'm not a member of.
What happens when these oaths come into conflict? That's the next question.
You fix it, or you dissolve the oath.
Yep. No other ways about it.
Yeah. There's no loopholes. You either fix the problem, or you dissolve the oath.
We outlawed a man who had a man, and his oath was severed. And at that point, he had a choice to make, whether he would not become an outlaw, but, well, I mean, yes, he would become an outlaw because he's out of law.
He'd be a wretch. He'd be a
wretch, yeah.
Right.
But he had the choice to make of whether he was going to swear a hold oath and rejoin the fold, or just fall by the wayside. But it's not as if I had the power to automatically just say, oh, okay, well, your hold oath is over here now. No, he had a one-to-one obligation to a man who failed and severed his bond.
Mm-hmm.
So he did what he could do. He swore another hold oath and forged his worth.
Yeah.
In those situations, it's just a shitty situation, but it's got to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I answered the question.
I think so. So we talked about oaths in discrete. Can you expand on like the web aspect? Because that's probably one of the interesting things about Theodish belief that people don't often understand is that the Lord will only hold some oaths, not all oaths within the Theod.
Correct. I'm the Leyford of Œþelland, but that does not guarantee I hold every single hold oath. And in fact, I don't. I hold the majority of the hold oaths, and I think that's just the way things fell out. But I have men that have their men in hold as well. That's the end result of the Theod process, is to find somebody willing to hear your hold oath. And you have the freedom to place your head to whatever knee's willing to hear it. We do have some restrictions on who can hear a hold oath. Me personally, for example, I have no issue. It's not bound up in a rung as much as it's bound up in, I like that a Carl within Œþelland has at least worked the Theod before they can hear a hold oath. That's just one of my little bits that I like to see happen. That's our Theod. But the web, it spirals outward. I don't hold everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a tree of oaths if you think about it. I mean, to use the term web of oaths, I think that was a bit of poetry, maybe a little on that end, because it really is a tree, and if one part of that limb is cut off, all of its ancillary twigs would be cut off unless they could be grafted back onto the tree. There is no mechanism between two peers unless they have a connection to somebody on top, unless they fork from the same person. There's no mutual obligation between those two people. But when you swear your hold oath, at least in our Theod, you swear to hold our Theod, our tribal Theod, or a Theodish Theod, as paramount, in that you will be an example of it. So that helps to mitigate any kind of problems or that lack of a definite connection. That connection between peers is really the identity of, I'm part of White Marsh, or I'm part of Œþelland. And the frith comes. The frith is the beautiful part, because the frith comes without those sorts of mutual connections or those requirements, those obligations. It's the natural flowing of I want to help this person because they are part of my Theod. Because the responsibilities are up and down, they're vertical, they're not horizontal or lateral.
So, given the prevalence and importance of oaths in Theodish belief, do you guys have more or possibly less than your fair share of stupid oaths being heard and given?
Well, a hold oath is a very formulaic thing.
Well, yeah.
And the thing about it, the way it is in White Marsh, I can't speak for Œþelland, but the hold oath is exactly the same.
Correct.
My hold oath that I give to one person is the same hold oath that they would give to their man, because there can be no ambiguity of the responsibilities. There can be no special considerations. Everybody is held to the same standard. So you can't have a situation where, well, that wasn't part of my oath. Well, everybody has sworn the same exact oath, so everybody knows what the obligations were between those two people. There cannot be any kind of special considerations. There can be no exceptions. There are no loopholes. That's it. It is It is It is just like holy writ as far as we're concerned.
I mean, how about outside of the bounds of the more structured things like hold oaths to perhaps like oaths given in symbol, as an example?
Well, you see, those things aren't oaths. And that's where we come into a conflict with a lot of the heathen community, because those things aren't oaths. Oaths are between a man and another person. There are things that are performed in symbols, such as a bet, as a boast, something that I'm going to accomplish. But that's not an oath. That's a bet. That is a pledge of something you're going to do. And those have you can tailor those down to the smallest of minutia. I'm going to do this. Well, when are you going to do it? Well, I'm going to do it by this date. If you don't do it by this date, what consequence are you going to pay for? Well, I'll do twice as much and I'll get it done by this date. Well, if you don't get that accomplished, what are you going to do? I mean, you can go into very minute detail on those sorts of things. But that's not an oath. That's a bet.
So I mean, explain. I mean, because a significant portion of our audience, I dare say most of them, are not Theodsmen.
Right.
And a lot of them come from either, well, I'll just say a lot of them come from the generic Asatru background, and a lot of stuff that comes with that, and that sort of thing would to them be an oath. So as far as functionally in Theodish belief, what is the functional difference between what you're calling an oath and...
They could say this is Coca-Cola. It doesn't make it Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, an oath is an oath. And, you can call whatever you're doing an oath, but that doesn't make it an oath. And this is one of those kinds of things that we're really inflexible about. An oath is between two people.
Okay.
And that's the whole ridiculousness. Well, I made an oath to a god. How the hell did you make an oath to a god? Did the gods respond? Did they make a response to that oath? Did they say, okay, you've said you're going to do these sorts of things for me. Here's what I'm going to do for you. It doesn't work that way. So I hate to sound like such a stickler about that, but, well, I did this and I swore a holy oath. No, you didn't. Shut up.
So what other types of oaths are there?
Well, there's oaths. The only other oath that I can think of that would be binding like that would be a guild oath. If you are in a guild, you are held to a certain degree of not sharing that information to anybody outside of the guild. That's about the only thing I can think of that would really qualify as an oath.
And even then, that's person to person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are definite ramifications. There are definite ramifications. If I break this oath, well, guess what happens? I'm going to be thrown out of that guild. And so yeah. I mean, that's an oath, I suppose, but. I never really quite understood the whole as a true oath thing, and like
to the gods.
Right.
Yeah, I just cannot fathom that.
No.
So essentially, a pledge is something you make that may have a consequence, but isn't necessarily given to a person, versus an oath, which is given and reciprocated between people.
Correct. Right.
Now, would you see a functional difference with a vow?
Well, a vow and a pledge are the same thing. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, I'm going to stop drinking. Okay, well, if you don't follow through with your thing, you're going to deal with the ramifications of people going, oh, there's a guy who can't stick to what he says. And that can cause damage to your luck. It can also cause damage to the luck of the people who witnessed your pledge or your vow. So that's why these sorts of things are very, very scrutinized in symbol. You don't, because when you're participating in a symbol, everybody in that room is becoming a witness to your vow, and they're tied into that. So if you don't accomplish your deeds, well, they run the risk of sharing in your bad luck. So they're going to hold you to it. They're going to make sure you do it because they're not going to screw their luck up for your stupid boast. And that's one of the reasons why in a symbol you have a Theod. A Theod's job is there to prevent you from doing something stupid.
So, just a couple more questions. Marcel, our Brazilian heathen, wondered about marriage oaths. I would say yes.
That's a hold oath of sorts, isn't it?
Yep.
That's how I see it.
That's where I was going to go next anyway. So thank you, Marcel.
Yeah.
What about oaths to bear true witness, like the concept of your oath in court, or that you would give at thing or moot? Do you consider that?
I would consider that more along the lines of a vow. I mean, you're not,
Okay.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay. And if you don't, the only ramifications are going to come from your social stigmatization. Well, I guess in a court of law, you could actually be held for perjury and face fines and imprisonment. But
I've always seen that as an oath as well, like the oath of enlistment. I don't know anybody. When I have given testimony in court, there was one person who asked me that question, the bailiff, and I told him those words. He asked, I delivered. The oath of enlistment, there was a military officer there who read the government's obligation. He is the representative of them, and I sure as hell made that obligation back to him.
And held rank. He held rank, too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that would be the same.
I think the interesting part is when you start contemplating atheism and oaths, which is something that we've kicked back and forth. Just how you really can't. I would never hear the oath of an atheist because it lacks the sacral. There's no sacral component with which to fall back on, or to hold that oath to the severity.
Yeah. I would agree with that too. If it's a holy bond, and if you don't acknowledge the holy,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's just words.
You can drink with us, you can hang out with us, you can eat my food, but I'm not going to hear your hold.
Yep, pretty much.
So, getting to the next topic that we wanted to discuss. And this comes out of that idea of holding oaths, and it's sort of an inverted pyramid scheme, and the luck and the obligation flows downwards as much as it does in the other direction. I mean, where does that go? That comes down to the one thing that seems to be the stickler for everybody who talks about Theodish belief, which is the idea of sacral kingship. So I wanted to give both of you the opportunity to kind of discuss it, tell us what it is, what it isn't, how you see it working in Theodish belief.
We keep to the king's religion, which is always weird because we have no king. It's the idea of the homeland, that yearning for the homeland you see in Indo-European belief. Man, if a sacral king appeared before I died, I would be overjoyed. I am just a pale comparison, keeping things together until that day happens. I'm not sure how else to explain it. To me, I mean, to me, the concept of sacral kingship borders on the numinous. I'll know it when I see it. I hope, and I hope I live to see it.
Yeah, I share a very similar view on it. In White Marsh, we have our gift stool, and the gift stool is our symbol of what sacral kingship should be, and it's a very simple wooden campaign chair with a back on it, and it has our little ship and chafe emblem on it. And what what the hell? And we have this, and it's a representation to us of what sacral kingship is. And I am not a sacral king, and I don't want to be a sacral king, and so I will never sit in that chair while it has its back, because that back is a level of comfort that I do not deserve. So when I have to sit in that chair, we actually remove the back, so it's an uncomfortable chair, and there is no cushion upon it. It's an uncomfortable seat, and that is a reminder that anybody who tries to become a sacral king is setting themselves up for an uncomfortable chair. It's our great mystery. It is our great grail, so to say. And much as Daniel said, it's a very numinous concept, and I hope I'll recognize it when it comes, if it comes in my lifetime. I don't have much hope that it will, but I'll be the person. I'll be the person standing there, saying, "No, you can't sit in that chair," until somebody proves me otherwise. Because my job as the alderman of the Theod is to protect that position. I'm like the who's the character in the Lord of the Rings who has the little throne next to the little next to the big one, Denethor?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like I sit in the little chair down there, and the big chair, it sits empty, and until our once and future king decides to manifest.
Or heart of romanticism.
Oh, we were sounding religious there for a second.
Well, I mean, there's interesting things about the Sacral King. I mean, he is both the leader and the servant of his people. So much so that he is viewed as tribal property. The king comes from Kinning, which is Scion. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when the tribe's luck is spent, what happens to the Sacral King? He becomes the sacrifice that renews the land.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the part we don't like to talk about. Yeah.
And even warding that chair, that could fall to me if the Theod's luck ever just totally craps out.
Yeah.
Just one of the terrible obligations.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there is the Sacral King, and then there's the Lord who has to be in the position of the king while not being the king himself. It's a burden.
It really is, and like I said, that it borderlines to me to that concept of the numinous. Speaking to my folk after bloat and our gifts, I see the tangible luck that flows down through our web of oaths, and my folks see it too. And I just cannot. I don't have a comprehension, or I can't fathom just how that would be wielded on the level of a sacral king. I mean, as you said, he was the property of the people as a whole. My brother just told me a story. My brother Rich, up in Dallas, Rich Culver, was telling me a story about a sacral king who went into retirement. He actually advocated, and the nation was going to war, so they.
Oh yes. I know this story.
They rode down to the monastery and drug his ass out and said, "No, get the
tied him to a horse." Yeah.
I mean, holy shit! How awesome is that?
Yeah, he would.
Well, if I does he remember the rest of the story, he eventually was relatively quickly struck down and.
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't carry a sword. He wouldn't carry a sword, so they put a reed in his hand.
Yeah. And that kind of chicanery tends to end badly. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's just it's awesome. It's the embodiment of just how much power there will be with them. Yeah.
It's an interesting story because it proves that the old saw that I'm gonna have hung around my neck when I die don't confuse a property of a thing for its nature isn't something that we just do now. The Sacral King has to. The Sacral King must be the willing king. The king must be willing to do it, or else it doesn't work. The Greeks used to sprinkle water on a sacrifice to get its assent, because that was an element of that requirement. And all sacrifices are the sacrifice. And a animal has no real concept of yes or no, or consent.
Just when he thought he was out, they pulled him back in. No, Toby, I think you're on. I mean, absolutely. He rise to the obligation. It's a burden of obligation.
So the question then becomes, why would anyone ever want to be a king?
Damn if I know.
Yeah.
I think
is choice given?
I think you jumped it a bit there. Why someone would want to be a king, I think, is much less important than why you would want them to be a king. Like, them seeking the position, I can't see that going well versus someone rising to it. Does that make sense?
I'm of the idea that a king will arrive when it's needed, and not until then. And you can't put the cart before the horse. And every time somebody has tried to name a king, it doesn't ever seem to work out very well. And their kingship is usually short-lived, and their kingdoms tend to go with them. So I'm of the mind that it's something that we hold as a concept. It's something that we eventually look forward to, but we're not in any hurry to make happen. And it'll happen when it's ready to happen. And if it never happens, it never happens. It's a grail. It's a mystery. And you can't force fit it.
So we have a question from Skullgrim. Wouldn't a Sacral King necessarily need to be a political king? I think the answer is yes, but I think the politics would be very, very different.
Anytime you have more than 3 people in a room, you have politics. And more than 2 people in a room, you have politics. So, no, I don't think you would have to wield any political power in the sense of, a politician or a statesman or anything like that. I don't think that would be necessary. That's why we put the adjective sacral in there. That a sacral king at one point in time was a political king is a historical function. It's not necessarily intrinsic to the position.
Although if it was, I would also say that our politics are not recognizable.
Yeah.
Compared to what the word politics, connotations it has today.
Theod works differently.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I was thinking with that, that's not likely a thing we're ever to see again, is somebody who could be a Sacral King in a Theodish sense, and still, I guess, a king in a profane sense.
Sure you could. Haven't you ever seen Lord Umongus in Mad Max? He's a king. He's got the political power. He's a borderline religious figure. It'll happen, but I don't necessarily think I want to live in that world.
No,
If it goes to shit in the handbasket, if the world goes to shit, you can see a buttload of Sacral Kings popping up all over the place. It's not the world I would want to live in.
And we can all Ride to Valhalla, shiny and chrome.
Exactly. So, I mean,
Reminds me of that quote of Lopan. And still we keep trying like fools.
exactly. Exactly. Indeed. Please, Chindai, soon. Anyway.
Well, no, I think that's it's an important. It is the central mystery of Theodish belief, and talking about it is, in a way, it's very difficult to talk about it because it is a mystery, and I don't mean that in the sense that that it's not understood, or there's just some things you don't.
It's not a secret, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. And in a world, and in a modern world that doesn't like the idea of religion and doesn't like the idea of mystery, and I will throw the Asatur and all that in with that group, that makes them uncomfortable. And rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mystery, and it's religious, and it's deep, and it's spiritual, and it defies easy definition and easy categorization. It can't be pigeonholed, and there are huge parts of it that we simply do not understand because we don't have a Sacral King.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if that happens, it's going to be a hell of a ride.
Yeah, it's fundamentally esoteric in the sense that you have to experience it to know it and understand it. Yeah.
I would say so. But what do I know? It's just a model.
And like anything spiritually worthwhile, we hold it to our chests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you bring up a wonderful point, and one that I've mentioned in the past. If you're not uncomfortable doing this, if you're not feeling some real pushback against your own modern nature, you're not really growing. You're not doing it less wrong. You're not doing it right. You're just slapping another coat of a different color paint on an old '85 Chevy, and not actually putting any work into the engine. So if this makes you uncomfortable, good. It's kind of our point.
Whatever.
Well, so that actually leads me into a question we got from someone who's supposed to be resting but has decided to watch the show. The work that you guys put into Theodish belief has led to a lot of Theodsmen dominating the heathen publishing stuff, at least the good stuff. Do you think that that's merely a consequence of the hard work you put in, or do you think that the popularity of those works is due to something else?
Toby said it last time. It's a tradition of excellence, or or the corporate speech that he was using. I think it all goes back in a lot of ways to the original Wit and Theod, which is what the Windland Reacher grew out of. In my conversations with Garmin, I mean, he was surrounded. Well, he says that they were just toking with some. He was toking with some really intelligent and creative people, but it was a really amazing think tank, and from that amazing think tank, a really interesting structure was assembled and allowed to grow and turn into what it has. And we've always been a very numerically small tradition. I mean, you could fit most Theodsmen who have ever lived into a high school gymnasium and still have plenty of room to dance. I mean, if you've got a collective group of intelligent people and well-spoken people and well-educated people putting together a really good thing and exploring it in minutia and giving it life and giving it breath, you're going to produce good works, I would say. I guess. I mean,
I can't disagree. I mean, and the research, the commitment to detail, it's stood the test of Theodish belief being reviled to where I first found it. Oh, those SCA true people, they're crazy. They're all fascists.
Animals. They kill animals, and they make everybody
Feudalism, fascism,
feudalism.
and
it's your count by votes.
Structure, terrible, and yeah, I mean, I've heard all that before, and here we are. I mean, I like to think that it's all the terminology gets appropriated. Everybody wants to latch onto that. Everybody's happy to see the attitudes on Symbol, how the Anglo-Saxon lexicon was revised or revived. Yeah, I think it is that tradition of excellence. And I'm happy to be part of that as somebody who doesn't do anything more than just write articles or just put my position out there on some things. I don't, not nearly as prolific a writer as Brian or Toby or my brother and men in my hold. So yeah, I'm thankful for them.
I think part of what it comes down to, honestly, just has to be the approach that I see from most Theodsmen when it comes to actually writing and putting something out there. Is it is more of an academic approach and is a well thought out approach, and it is trying to not just state an opinion, but to hold a position and back that position up. And
i.e.
as a reason,
convincing ourselves.
What's that?
Convincing ourselves.
Right. And that's what I think what a lot of it comes down to. I mean, half the, I'm not nearly as prolific a writer as some of the other guests we've had, or even most of the hosts. But when I do write something, a lot of it is because I'm trying to convince myself of the idea that I now have in my head. Mm-hmm. And so I think, when it comes to the Theodsman writing, it's not that you're more prolific, it's just that in the end, what you write is more respected when you hold it up against, as somebody in the IRC put it earlier, the fact that everybody on Tumblr with a god spouse has a book. When you hold it up against that...
I liken it to a very simple yet profound idea, and one that a lot of people haven't really internalized. The idea that our ancestors were not stupid, that they were not wholly ignorant, and that whatever they were doing worked for them for a reason.
Yeah.
And once you internalize that thought, you have a desire to go figure out what was making them tick, what was driving their thought. And no, you're not going to make it, you're not going to recreate it, you're not going to rebuild it. It's perfect as it was. You can't step into that river again, the same river that they did. But you can understand where they're coming from and understand how they approach a problem and understand how to solve that problem in a way that they might have solved the same problem.
Well, I mean, what we're doing is approaching things from first principles all over again so that we can apply it to how things are today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that bothers me the most, that everybody's like, oh, well, we live in 2016. Well, no shit. I live in 2016. You can't do things the way the ancients did it. No, but I can respect what they did, and I can learn why they did it. And the idea that they were somehow primitive, I think, is just an anathema, because we are the primitives. We're the ones who are not understanding what we do. We are the ones cut off from that wellspring of wisdom. We're the ones stumbling around in the dark looking for pieces to put together to try to make something out of this, all of this stuff. And, they were just living life. And so the idea that they were primitive or backwards in many ways is just well, at least in matters of spirituality and interpersonal communications and connectivity, that's yeah, what Mark says here. It's chronological snobbery, as coined by C.S. Lewis. I agree with you 100%.
The myth of progress.
Yes, the myth of progress. That's what Garman called it in his book. The myth of progress. That somehow we have become better at understanding things. But we still ask the same fundamental questions that our ancestors did. What is the purpose of life? What is love? What is luck? We're still struggling with those same questions.
Mm-hmm.
And because we acknowledge that, and because we embrace that, and because we realize that our ancestors actually knew more than we do, I think that's where we have that tactical advantage when it comes to our ideas and how we assemble our ideas, because we're working on the assumption that they had their shit together, and not us. And a lot of these people, buy my book and read it. I mean,
There's 44 pages of self-help.
yeah, exactly.
Hallelujah and praise somebody.
Yeah.
No, it's a profound. It really caught me off guard when I heard it, and it was a wonderful lady down in Florida that keyed me onto it, and she was talking about how experimental archaeology has taught us so much about how things could have been done and might have been done and had been done, and she started her talk off with, our ancestors were not stupid. In fact, they were geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
And it just completely changed my approach. I was flabbergasted by it.
Why are we so prolific and why are we so influential? Because we're smart.
And we care. And we
care. We really do care. This is important to us. This is real. This is not a game. Although we can have fun with it. It's not a game. It's not an intellectual exercise, though we can engage in intellectual exercises. This is religion. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. This is religion. It's important. I've dedicated 20 years of my life to this. It's important. It's real.
It's the bedrock of my spiritual nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you're saying it's not enough to get drunk and yell in the general direction of Odin?
Everybody starts somewhere. It's up to you to determine whether or not that's going to be the meaning of your life. That's all I've got.
There you go.
I like that, Toby. Yeah, pretty much.
Such a little poet.
I had something really mean to say, Toby, but I decided that I'll save that for later.
I thank you. I'll have that hanging over me for the next 6 weeks. At least it's not tubals.
I was going to say it sounded downright Wilton-esque, but
Oh,
Wait.
Next time, Josh, it's an upward thrusting motion between the second and third ribs. You don't want to wiggle it. Oh, so we've got about 15 minutes left. Any questions that we've missed? Actually, there's one that Dan, you brought up.
It was from the chat room,
Yep.
and I thought it was pretty good. The question was, how would you handle a situation? Let me get it again. How would you handle a situation where you wouldn't hear someone's hold oath, but someone below you would hear it? And I thought that was pretty interesting because, at least with an Œþelland, when we feel that somebody when a Theod has worth themselves, the Witta and myself kind of kick back and we go, well, would any of y'all hear the hold oath?
Mm-hmm.
And we just informally chat, and really if the answer is no, then thanks for playing. Talk to you later.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in the idea that anybody has the potential to worth. And if a person is sincere and they want to try to go through thraldom, unless they're a serial killer or a child molester or clearly mentally ill, we'll give them the opportunity. And you can get through thraldom. I mean, you can meet all the obligations and you can do everything like that, but at the end of the day, somebody's got to hear your oath. And honestly, if a person was getting to that point in White Marsh and I wasn't comfortable with them, I would tell my men. I'd be like, look, this is a person I'm not comfortable with. As the guardian of my Theod's luck and of its members, not just its luck, but its actual physical members, I would express my feelings on the matter. And I would trust that my men would follow my read. If they truly felt that I was somehow being unfair or unreasonable, I would expect them to say, "Hey, maybe
Some
you're missing."
pushback.
Yeah, pushback. But I mean, if they wanted to hear the oath, that would be their right because I cannot interfere with that. But I could certainly go. Don't. And I think my people trust in my judgment enough that they would say, okay, well, if Brian sees a problem here, I probably shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's love what I love and hate what I hate. And those terms are in the Eldritch sense. Love means to give leave, and to hate means to view as a threat. If I love something, even if you don't necessarily agree with it, I'm asking you to give leave and say, okay, I trust in my Lord, so I'm going to, against my gut feeling, I'm going to trust in him and give leave. And if I hate something or if I loathe something, well, there's a reason why Brian's not liking this, and I'm going to, once again, give leave. And if Brian sees this as a potential threat, I'm going to view it as well. So
Do versus law. Do versus law. Absolutely.
It's an exercise of power without exercising power.
Mm-hmm. Soft power is the modern parlance.
Okay.
Well, it sounds to me a lot like the structure that is intentional within your Theods lends not only to the strength of the groups but also to their security. Like the way they're built it doesn't seem as incidental as a lot of Asatru groups that I've interacted with.
It's got 40 years of experience behind it. It's got a lot of trial and error.
Yep.
We did not create this. We just inherited it. And while we add to it and we refine it, constantly honing that blade, it's not something that we've had to start over from scratch. That was the great advantage of becoming a Theodsman. I could have done these things. I could have done any of these religious aspects without being a Theodsman, but I would be missing out on that wisdom tradition that I got to inherit. So, I mean, why rewrite the wheel? You've got 40 years of speed behind it. Take it up and then run with it. That's what we've done.
Goes back to that first principle. Older and established is better.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It was actually, interestingly enough, very similar words were why I gave Brian, why I asked him to give me a penny, was I didn't want to spend the next 25 years doing what he had done. I wanted to move forward and be a part of something. So this is a perennial question, and we did answer it last time, but the lady who's asking is in the audience, and I feel like it's a good question to answer repeatedly. Are there any books that you can learn more about Theodish belief from? Not really.
No. We're an oral tradition.
By design. By nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can write about Theodish belief, but you can't write Theodish belief. You can talk about Theod, but you can't write it down. You can write things about Theod, but you can't codify it. You can't codify this tradition. It can't be done. And Garmin wrote The Way of the Heathen, and it's an interesting book, but it's not Theodish belief. It wasn't ever intended to be Theodish belief. It was a side project. It was greater Theodism, and so it gives you hints, and it gives you glances or little side images of what Theodish belief could be, but it's not Theodish belief itself, and it never really purported to be that. If anything, it was just an interesting tool that said, "Oh, well, somebody got it. Somebody got at least this much, so they might make a potential Theodsman, or the High Theodish, as it said in that book." But no, you can't learn Theodish belief. You can't learn it from a book, and that's just the way it is. You have to learn it through the interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you learn these things by interacting. You learn these things by observing. You learn these things by being a Theodsman, or a potential Theodsman in thraldom. That's just the way it is, and it's not us being secretive. It's not us being elitist. It's just, how do you learn how to become a painter? You can't learn how to be a painter from a book. You have to learn by watching other painters. You have to pick up the tools and fail. It's just that's just the way it is. And yes, some people are more talented innately, and some people gravitate towards Theodish belief innately, but you have to be taught how to paint by a painter.
How do you learn any skill? How do you learn what love is until you have experience it?
And experience heartbreak,
Yep.
Which is why I think we are so successful with some of the hard scholarship out there, because the way our Theods are structured, that society, we're able to put that into play, those dynamics, and work them in a very living way.
Yeah, we've got our own little laboratories. We can take an idea and go, "Ooh, let's put it out there and see what happens." It's really kind of funny. I was at a Renaissance festival in Pennsylvania, and I ran into two people who perform medieval music, and they're friends of Garmin Lords. And I remember seeing an advertisement for one of their CDs back in the day in a Theod magazine when it was still being produced. And I walked up to them and I said, "Oh, I'm familiar with your work. I'm from Baltimore." And they said, "Well, how do you know about us?" And I said, "Well, I read about you in Theod magazine about a decade or so ago." And they're like, "Oh, Theodish belief." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, Garmin's experiment." And that's exactly how they said, "Oh, Garmin's experiment." That kind of really struck me. I'm like, "Experiment?" But they were right. And like, "Oh, we've never actually met one of you all." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I mean, they're friends of mine now and wonderful people, but that Garmin's experiment thing really kind of it shocked me for a moment, and it stuck with me. The Winland Richa was Garmin's laboratory, just as White Marsh is my laboratory and Œþelland is Daniel's laboratory. It's a place for us to hammer this thing we call religion out.
So, speaking of, and I think we got this question last week as well, but can Theodish structures be successfully applied to other flavors of heathenry?
Sure.
That's from Jack.
I can't see why not.
Sure, clumsily, but they can. You can give a monkey a handgun and he might be able to fire a gun. Doesn't mean he's going to hit anything. But I mean, no, I'm just using that as a joke. I mean, that's just my nature. I'm not saying people are monkeys. But clumsily. But you can have all the book knowledge, but if you don't have the actual experiential knowledge, you're only working with a very small part of what it is. And so, yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, if the person's not trying to ape Theodish belief, but is rather just seeing useful structures in Theodish belief.
Oh, we put out stuff all the time, and that's what I was saying the last time. You know, you're never going to find people more generous and more free-giving of their information and their research than you will Theodsmen. We like sharing with people. We like giving people, hey, we had this really cool concept. We have this idea, you know, do
It
something.
looked like
with
in the chat room he clarified it that he was looking for other cultures. How do you apply? And absolutely you can. I mean, hell, that was early days of Theodism. You had Rich brought it up. You had the Saxons, the Frisians, the Norse, the Gothic.
Yeah.
You can absolutely apply those.
The Goth didn't work out because they could never get the nail polish shade right. I'm gonna get a lot of shit for that because I'm friends with the guy who did that. But anyway,
I actually think the one thing I would note, like if you're trying to adopt Theodish, the Theodish tool chest or pieces of it, it will help you and hurt you in the sense that you're going to make a lot of the same mistakes that Theodsmen have already made.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly,
you didn't have the full toolkit, and you didn't have what's not in the toolkit. That doesn't mean it's not worth using. I came out of a Theodish-ish community, and it was, you know, their practice it was very much influenced by Theodish belief, and I think to their credit, to our credit, we did pretty cool things.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I was only really joking about the monkey with the handgun thing. I mean, some people are doing some really beautiful things that aren't Theodish belief. They're recognizable to us and different, but still very beautiful and functionally good. So yeah, absolutely, those things can be taken, and please. Have at it. We can't turn everybody into a Theodsman. And like I've said before, our resources are very limited. And I love seeing a better heathenry developing. If anything, it stems back the tides of the idiots. I'd rather have allies at my side.
Yeah, let me know how you're doing. That's my question. My advice is I will say that I never liked the emphasis on a single tribe back in the early days of Theodish belief.
Mm.
That never really resonated with me. So by culture, I hope it's a heathen worldview, and it looks like the guy that asked that was from Colorado. At least I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
So make your cultural Theod your Colorado heathen, man. We're Texas heathens. Œþelland's Texas. My culture is a heathen worldview with Texas culture and all that entails.
Same with us. We're Southeasterners.
Yep.
Now nobody can be perfect.
I know. There's all of y'all.
I think
Up here in Cascadia, we're very good at looking down on the rest of you.
honestly, I think the fear is that I'll have fewer jokes to tell if we ever go to Cascadia than Theod.
Well, I want to thank you guys again. We always have to shut these conversations off. I appreciate your time. Just real quick recap. We've hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Tumblr and Instagram and all those social media. Tell us what you think. If you like the show, if you like where it's going, if you don't like the show, if you don't like it, let us know. That fuels my hate pump.
Well, and real quick, just for our audience, just because the conversation has to end for us doesn't mean it has to end for you guys. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk about Theodish belief, you can shoot us a message, and we'll try and put you in touch with the people who can answer your questions and who will talk to you about this. It's what we're here for.
And if you've got more questions, I'm sure I can rope these guys back on for another show. Maybe.
We have to. No, seriously, you guys are always a good show when you come on.
Well, thank you.
I have fun. This is great.
Yeah, it's good. I have a good time. And thank you for not talking about thraldom again. Jesus, I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it.
I think from now on, if next time we have you guys on, if that question comes up in the IRC, we're just gonna shoot them a link to the first Theodish episode.
A picture upstairs.
It's the great thing about the internet. We've said it once, so we don't have to say it again. We can just throw a link at you.
Yeah, there you go.
Really, and if they insist, we've got a meme that involves crossroads and a tree and a rope.
All right, guys.
Anyway.
What are we doing next week, Thorin?
Next week we are having our first Heathen Talk military episode. Our guests are going to be, everybody's taking the week off except for me, and our guests are going to be other veteran heathens. So far I have 2 guests coming on. I'm going to make that announcement later on. I'm not going to make that announcement tonight, and trying to secure the third. So really hope to see you all there. We're going to be talking about heathenry from the military perspective, not necessarily about heathens in the military, though I'm sure that'll come up, but also how your time in the military, how Marines make the best bullet sponges, I'm sure. But
that works too.
Remind me to tell you about what my CO said about that when I was in A school. But yeah, so everybody join us for that episode, and it's sure to be a good time. It's sure to give a little bit of perspective on how the veteran mind can color how you think about heathenry.
And if you've got heathen friends who are current active military, tell them to tune in.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Or if they're just interested in this thing that you're doing. Anyway, thanks everybody again. Appreciate it. Thorin, Josh. You're doing it wrong.
And you're not the boss.
Have a good week, everyone.